Tonight on Legislative Review.
A look at the week ahead. Plus, a proposed alternative to driver's license suspension. And a House bill on the digital tracking of released violent sex offenders finds its way through the Senate.
All that coming up on Legislative Review. Thank you for watching Legislative Review. I'm Angela Nolasco with today's top discussions in the state legislature.
So ordered.
Welcome to Week 10 of the 2025 legislative session, which convened on Monday, January 13th, and is scheduled to adjourn on Sunday, April 27th. This week in the legislature, it's wall-to-wall policy committee hearings, but there's a difference from the policy hearings from the last 2 months.
We have Representative Donaghy here. She has two bills in front of us, and let's start with Senate Bill 1080.
In this round of hearings, House and Senate policy committees will be considering bills that have already passed the opposite chamber. House committees will hear Senate-approved bills, and likewise, Senate committees will discuss measures that have passed in the House. On committee agendas throughout the week, a bill to define protected classes in public schools, including immigration status and sexual orientation. A bill to create a new so-called mosquito fleet of passenger-only ferries. A bill dealing with teen work rules. Bills concerning juveniles in state detention facilities. A proposal to allow counties and cities to raise local real estate excise taxes to fund police. A contentious bill that would limit rent increases. A bill to close the Yakima Valley School and Rainier School. A bill that gets into the issue of how public health officials will respond to future outbreaks of communicable diseases, and much more.
Representative Bob Curtis, House, 1969 to 1977.
In addition to committee hearings, on Wednesday at 11 a.m., the full Senate and House will come together for a joint memorial floor session to remember former state legislators who have passed away. We start our Monday coverage in the Senate, where members of the Law and Justice Committee held a public hearing on a bill that aims to change how drivers facing license suspensions from repeat violations are handled. The bill, House Bill 1244, could potentially alter the way penalties for unsafe driving are viewed, proposing an alternative to the standard 60-day driver's license suspension for drivers who accumulate 3 or more moving violations within a year, or 4 or more within 2 years. Instead of getting their license suspended, they can enroll in a safe driving course by the Department of Licensing. If they pass and meet the requirements, such as providing proof of insurance and paying a $20 reissuance fee, they can have their license reinstated early. If a driver violates the terms of their probation during the reinstatement period, they face additional penalties. The bill would only allow a reinstatement once every 5 years, and any violations during the probation period would disqualify the driver from this option. Democratic Representative Sharon Wiley sponsored the bill.
A lot of relatively minor things can be done over and over and over again, and maybe the 100th time is when something bad happens. A lot of the same behaviors that we could get a ticket for, maybe nothing horrible happened, but something could have happened, and that's why there's an infraction or a ticket. In a situation where a training class early on can get somebody out of those sloppy or ignorant or careless habits that result in a legitimate getting caught in a consequence, I believe that that's a reasonable path that saves that person and their family and society from riskier or more dangerous incidents later on.
For many drivers, like those who rely on their vehicle for work or family obligations, the consequences of losing their license can be severe. Supporters believe it will allow drivers who are re-educated on road safety to regain their driving privileges and get back on the road. A second chance without the harsh penalty of suspension. The State Department of Licensing shared their support for the bill.
This is a modest change in the law. The law did change originally in 2023, and it moved the suspension from 6 in 1 year or 7 in 2 years down to 3 in 1 year or 4 in 2 years. And we're not upending that at all. What we're doing is giving a one-time per 5-year option to just take a safe driving course in advance of getting a suspension. It doesn't absolve people of the offenses that they've already taken on over the past year or 2 years, because again, it's going to keep you in a probationary period after the course is finished. And so again, if you have just one more infraction at that point, you'll get suspended again. So this is really just giving this opportunity for folks to have that alternative.
No one testified to oppose the bill, but having passed in the House on a 57-40 vote, it's garnered some opposition from critics who worry that allowing early reinstatement could potentially lead to repeat offenders, putting both the drivers and the public at risk. House Bill 1244 could likely face further scrutiny and debate in the Senate, but if passed, could go into effect April 2026. During the hearing, the committee also discussed the bipartisan push to protect communities from violent sex offenders, a bill we previously covered in the House floor in early March. House Bill 1457 proposes to monitor sex offenders who were granted conditional release from secure facilities. It aims to apply stricter measures by requiring real-time tracking via electronic devices that can set boundaries in restricted zones, like schools or childcare facilities. It would also alert authorities when the device is tampered with. Under current law, sexually violent predators can be conditionally released if they meet certain criteria. But there are safety concerns when they transition to less restrictive alternatives in the community. Supporters say it would put communities at ease and ensure that sex predators follow the conditions of their release, with the help of technology, to stay compliant. Republican Representative Dan Griffey is the bill's prime sponsor.
I think that the survivor notification is one of the best parts of this, in that those that are most worried about a sexually violent predator being released in the community are those that have survived the terrible impacts of what they did on society.
No one testified to oppose the bill, which got a unanimous vote in the House. If passed, it will go into effect 90 days after the session adjourns.
That's it for this episode of Legislative Review. Make sure to join us nightly at 8 and 11 for your highlights on the state legislature. And follow us on social media. Have a good night.